doesn't operate. Click. Ah, it does. Oh, it does too much. Oh, now we're here. So welcome to the World Café in Darmstadt, and also anywhere in the world from where you joined us online. I haven't seen how many people are there. So my name is Jörg Schulz. I'm with EUMETSAT, and I was invited by the organizers to open this event, maybe in my little function as a member of the interim science steering group of WCRP core project called Earth System Models and Observations. And I have also about 3 minutes to tell you a little bit about this. I think the World Café here is about developing new ideas. So that's up to the people here in the room sitting at the table. So, and you should meet their near-term future needs on the timescales that you see on the wall. So from 1 to 3, 5, and 10 years. And I think doing this on the observation modeling interface is of particular importance for the IPCC process. And that's, of course, has some importance also for this UNFCCC periodical returning global stock takes. I think having a structured conversation about this is to really further fostering understanding of the climate system, but also improving model predictions and projections, which is still needed, as we have seen in a couple of talks. I think this cafe is addressing, for instance, best use of observations, but also the need for new and additional observations, which is of course important in particular for space agencies, but also other network or operators. The observation model interface is a wide field that need really a specific community to build. And I think you have 7 tables around here, so there might be even more possible tables. And because what you can address is things like use of observational and model data and climate analysis. So we saw some presentations today about this, classical model performance evaluation, so like done in CMIP Ops for MIPS. You can use it for model improvement, so parameterization development. So there you may probably really need some specific observations to do so. You can address the use of observations in reanalyses, so maybe even to produce physically consistent ECVs, but also an assimilation into climate models, which is probably rather an emerging field that you could also probably discuss. What is also important is developing observational requirements for these emerging needs. I think I saw on the table is something like high resolution modeling and other things. So I think those requirements for those type of model activities are basically unknown. It has also to do a lot with new technology, in particular, so cloud computing and other things to really bring observations and model data closer together. I think in Europe we have this example of Destiny, and they're building digital twins on particular applications like extremes, like ECMWF is doing, and adaptation. So those things are important also to have in mind when you talk about this interface. So the World Climate Research Program has established a new core project. As I said, it's called Earth System Modeling and Observations. So it's still very new, and it's establishing its own agenda. But it shall provide global coordination mechanisms across all model data and observational activities within WCRP. So it's basically coordinating all the well-known modeling panels like the Working Group on Numerical Experimentation, the CMIP, the Working Group on Climate Models, the TIERA on the reanalyses, S2S, and we'll also see some observational panels that should interface with these modeling activities. So we will kick off the session with 3 short interventions. And the first one will be by Susanne Mecklenburg about the observations. Then we have one from Richard Jones on the modeling aspects and one from Sabrina Speich about on the interface between both. And I hope I can stay to the end of those, because then I need to go to the other session to give a presentation, and I will not tell them that they should come here. So I will be quiet about the drinks until I finish my presentation, and then I send them over. Thank you very much.
Thanks, yes, good evening or good afternoon. Just a few words from my side. So my background really is in observations. Obviously, I'm coming from the European Space Agency, so we are, of course, the provider of space-based data for climate research and climate modeling. For me, sort of coming up to this little intervention here, I was thinking really what are the two things that I also have to start thinking over the next few years, and where are we actually standing at that interaction between observations and modeling for myself. As you know, in the Climate Change Initiative, we also have the Climate Modeling User Group. You might have seen this morning the presentation by Richard Jones and all the insight that he gave us in about the interface between those two worlds. We also recently have started to host the Coupled Model Intercomparison project from WCRP, which is great. So from an observation perspective, we're moving closer to our main customer. But that's not the only thing that we're doing there. I think one of the questions that we're also asking ourselves for is what can we actually move with our observations in a modeling environment? They're not just, in inverted commas, for verification, but they're also, of course, for improving processes in the various models that we're using. What are these processes that we do need to improve? That's something that we will need to address over the coming months and years, really. We're also a little bit on a crossroad, and we're here at the GCOS updated implementation plan conference, I call it. So this is evolving user requirements that we need to address over coming years, 5 to 6 years. But we're also at the same point at the transition between the assessment report 6 to 7 from IPCC. And this is quite an interesting time because here we need to assess a little bit what the major step was, from 5 to 6 in terms of interaction between modeling and observation, but also what is still missing. And we are right at the point where we go from one to the next. So it's the time where you can actually modify and influence what you would like to do. And that's something that we would like you to think about as well in these discussions here today. And then last but not least, I would say, do we need to change something in the structural work or the sort of integration work that we need to do in between different groups? I mean, we had today the comment from Richard Jones saying that we are operating still in some silos, even though the situation has improved, but not as efficiently, I think were the words. So I think that's something that we need to think in future, how we maybe change the tools of working together. I mean, you know, having a workshop is a nice thing, but I think we need something that is a bit more stringent in combining the two worlds. And maybe that's integrated projects, also integration with in situ data, not just between modeling and observations. So don't want to take more time up. I have already heard the alarm clock going, so I hand over to Richard.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'm really pleased to see an alarm clock there as well. That's great. Yeah, thanks for inviting me up to give a little bit of an intro to the modelling side. So I'm Richard Jones from the Met Office Hadley Centre in the UK. I am a modeller by background. I've been modelling or using outputs from models. When I started modelling, I started by building regional climate models in the Met Office a few decades ago, should we put it that way, some time. So that's sort of my background. Obviously, the Met Office Hadley Centre is a very big modelling centre. We have a whole range of models. We do Earth system models. We do just sort of physical climate models. We do regional climate models, high resolution models. We do seasonal forecasting. We do NWP models, of course, in the Met Office. So we cover a very, very broad range. We make an enormous use of observations in that, especially on the NWP and the seasonal side. But I think the important thing that I've always felt, and I think this is a thing to keep in mind when we're thinking about what we're doing here, is why are we modelling? What are we doing it for? And there are lots of different types. I've already talked about lots of different types of models that we use, but then there are also the models of components of the system. So, you know, people talk about the observationalists and the modelers as if they are homogeneous groups. No, they're not at all. So, I mean, if you talk about people who are modeling Antarctica, they're modeling ice sheets, and they want much more detailed information for the modeling of their ice sheets than is, for example, is generated by the other class of models, such as the global climate models that CMIP having. So there's like there's sort of there's a gap there, there's an interface there between different types of modelers. So, but I think the key thing with all this is to keep in mind the question that we're trying to answer with our models. In some cases, we are trying to understand about how the Earth system actually works. So the data assimilation work that we do, bringing in observations to try and constrain models and to include that with our physical understanding of the way that the system behaves. That's about trying to get an understanding of the processes or trying to fill in the gaps. So we have lots of observation of the surface. So, for example, with the oceans, we know what's going on there from lots of observations. We have some in situ observations of what's going on in the depth of the ocean, but that's insufficient to really characterize what the oceans themselves are doing throughout the full expanse of the ocean. And so we need to bring models in there. So this is a real model and data fusion, but again, it's for a specific purpose, which is to understand for example, the processes that drive that drive the thermohaline circulation and what's happening in terms of ocean convection. Whoa, that's a bit scary. So I think that's really the thing that I think I would encourage you to be thinking about here is why we here? What is it that we're trying to bring together? And so focus on the scientific questions or the societal relevance of the scientific questions, because then that really helps us to focus on how it is that we can take action to make things better.
Thank you. So I'm Sabrina Speich, and you know me already because of the conference. So I'm a physical oceanographer, and I work with observation and models. So models that include also reanalysis, seasonal forecast, and I'm also a co-chair of one of the panel of GCOS. I would like here to bring a little bit information about what has been said during this conference. So first of all, climate phenomena are seamless in scale, so include extremes. So it goes from scales of weather to century and millennia. So climate change, we have seen, requires an holistic approach that is not just the atmosphere, the ocean, the land, but every information is really important for the system and how it evolves and how it is impacting society. So we need integration of model and data because, of course, modelers of different kind, of different subsystems need to talk to each other, but they need also to talk with observations to better integrate this information. So, models and observations are really working together to try to understand and develop a new parameterization to improve the skills of whatever prediction we are doing for weather, for numerical weather prediction down to Earth system climate projections. We have seen that initializing whatever prediction with observation provides a better skill, better results, and actually we need to initialize this prediction with whatever information we have, and not depending only on one network, on one type of observation, satellite versus in situ or whatever others remote sensed. So observation also provide the ground truths for the Earth climate and how it is changing. So these are really important to validate and calibrate the model in cluster projections. So we have really to be aware in different, whatever is our work, that there is this link that is very important. So today we should foster exchanges, really being open on what we need to do to foster the skill of predictions, because we need really to focus not only on mitigations, but also on the adaptation. And adaptation is at the scale of cities, but it is also at the scale of coast. It is the scale of food availability. So we do not have much biology here, but actually we have not only need of water, but we need also food and proteins. So So the challenges are enormous. We have less and less time because climate change is going fast. So thank you very much for your work.
Okay, now I'm just going to introduce how we're going to work the session today. So on your table, you will see there is an attendance form that if you could fill it in and add your email if you want to receive the report after. There are also idea sheets that you can fill in as you're sitting here or shortly after, and they'll go up on our posters here on the wall, and they will be in the poster session tomorrow so everyone can see the ideas that have been created in this session. We'll then move very shortly into the first discussion session. So on the tables that you're on just now, you'll have a discussion session of 20 minutes. So your chairs on your tables will lead that discussion. They'll also be noting down some of the key points. We'll then have a 5-minute refreshment break to top up. You can add your ideas onto the roadmap there and then move on to a different table. So don't stay on the same table that you're on just now. You'll move to a different table and then you'll have your second 20-minute discussion session. At the end of that, the chairs will then give a 2-minute feedback each. We've got 3 of them that from the online sessions yesterday, and they'll come back and we'll hear all of that feedback, and then that will be the end of the session. So please engage really sort of enthusiastically in the discussion. Hopefully it will be quite vibrant in here, and make sure to switch at the halfway point, and we will be letting you all know when time is up. So enjoy.